There was no funding for it. I found a way to do it. Advance yourself, but then, and listen and steal everybody's idea. And this is stolen too. R&D is not research and development. It's rip off and duplicate.
I love it. What? I've never heard that. Yes, yes, yes.
And there is nothing wrong with that.
Hey there, friend. It's Stephanie Crevens, your host of the Hot Mess Hotline, where we teach mid-level leaders how to think and act like entrepreneurs. Today, we are talking to my new friend, Darren Reese. He is the CEO and president of SESCO Group, which is an environmental remediation company here in Indianapolis, but they work across the globe. Part of the reason Darren and I get along so well is that we both have masters in public affairs from Indiana University, and we've taken the unlikely path of becoming a CEO. So I don't want to speak for Darren, but when I joined SPIA at IU way back in 2003, I had the passion of changing the world, and I assumed that meant in a nonprofit setting or in a government agency. And here I am, the CEO of an executive and team coaching firm here in Indianapolis, working across the country, similar to Darren. And I know Darren's passion is still to change the world, and we talk about that in this upcoming episode. What SESCO does is they are a full-service consulting firm providing investigation, remediation, redevelopment, environmental engineering, infrastructure, and other compliance services. They are the folks that make sure when we turn a brownfield into a future playground, it's safe for our kids to play in. Or when you convert an old piece of property that used to be a dry cleaner, it's safe for the business that comes behind it, right? This is really important work that affects generations of children and families around the globe. And so I'm proud that he would share his time with us to share his experiences. He joined SESCO way back in April 2013, quickly became the CEO, and by quick, I mean quick. So listen in on this episode. Listen for how Darren describes for us the importance of integrity within a company and how that transformed his company in 2013 and still transforms the work of the organization today and the customers that they work with. You are in for a treat in the lessons learned of this CEO, my friend. Let's dig in. So, Darren, walk us back to when you joined SESCO. Who were you then as a leader? What did you walk into?
What did I walk into?
What did you walk into?
Oh my gosh, man. That's a great story. I was a client of SESCO as I was in public service as leader of a Department of Development in my hometown, and SESCO was a client, and I was a client, and SESCO was a vendor, and I found them to be very entrepreneurial. And as I was getting recruited, it was all wonderful, and I had never been invited to their office, and I went in for an interview, and I realized quickly why I had never been invited to the office. It was humble and a really cool. First impressions are first impressions, and then the backstories are just awesome. It's a building in Northwest Side, near Northwest Side, that had been repositioned. It was a brownfield redevelopment. We worked with Indy Lisk back in the 90s to get it done. And it's a super cool story, but the neighborhood was still up and coming. And I remember driving in from, basically the rural Indiana sticks going, wow, I hope I don't die here. And so there was that.
It's your privilege showing, Darren.
It is
showing.
Absolutely. That's very fair. Call me out on that all day.
Love your style.
Hey, but like I said, it was a great story, and I ended up embracing it and being a great ambassador for it and champion of it. And that's part of what we do is, take what can be and make it more to what is. And
yes.
The opportunity as it was presented at the time was a VP of government relations and redevelopment. It was something that the company was looking at getting into that it hadn't done that before. So I thought that was also pretty cool too, is like really spend some time in the public sector. My big deal is to leave things better than we found it. So it's a great general fit. I'd say within 6 months, the CEO who recruited me decided that it wasn't his cup of tea to run a company anymore. And I had I had a hard decision to make. So, a lot of the projects that I did and still do take a lot of time, and I'm not exactly cheap to have on board. So I decided that I would take a swing at running the company. I guess you make the self-efficacy or privilege joke there too. Go for it just now. So
no, I appreciate your ambition, actually. And I'm sure there was some confidence and overconfidence that was built into it, but
isn't there always?
Oh, that's sometimes that's what gets us through as leaders, man.
It does. It starts it.
Quick question, just to timestamp it for us. What year was this?
That was 2013.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So a long, long time ago.
At least 37 COVID lives ago.
I remember it I'm starting to remember it in sepia tones at this point. So, so by the end of 13, I had what I thought was the best, and now I've also thought has been the worst title in the company, president and CEO.
It seems like such a magical position before we step into it, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Can you hear the angels? Can you hear the?
Not anymore. Not anymore. No.
Oh no.
Yeah. So you step into this role coming from local government, newly minted in the for-profit industry, being, I assume, invited into the CEO role in addition to accepting the invitation. Back then, walk us through what you thought being the CEO of SESCO would mean. What was your mindset way back yonder in 2013 as a young buck?
Well, one thing that hasn't changed much is that we're, hoping to take over the world.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that plays into it. I had spent some time with the back office finances as I was going through the process of determining whether or not it was going to be a good fit for me and our investors and all that. And I realized that there were some significant challenges that we needed to overcome. The company was pushing 15 years old at the time. I think we had about 14 people. But again, said self-efficacy says, you know what, we can do this, and I'm the guy. And I think that through proof of commitment, passion, and honestly, a transparent attitude, that we would be able to overcome whatever we were at the time and grow into something that we could all be just a little bit more proud of, which every day we need to be a little bit more proud of what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. So you had hopes and dreams to take over the world, which I'm right there with you. That's why we're friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. Yes, I believe in that. You saw a need to be more transparent. You saw some significant growth and challenges up ahead. Back then, though, what did you think being the CEO of a company that was entrepreneurial and in a lot of ways walking the talk, right? Like transforming brownfields back into usable facilities that create a tech space for communities. What did you think this adventure as CEO was going to be like?
Man, right out of the gate, I thought it was just going to be, nothing but being a wonderful ambassador, being a champion for the company, for the community, another level of involvement across the state and the Midwest, to be able to have higher level conversations with peers. And, I guess, it's the next step in what a career path should be leading up to that pinnacle C-suite sort of experience. So it was really exciting. It was also kind of humbling. I mean, I had some friends that were like, "How'd you do that first thing you did?" I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, well, I'm an idiot. I said, yes.
And right place, right time.
Yes.
And
well, yeah, and the right opportunity, the right skill sets that I've built to get there. I mean, it's not something that I take as lightly as I joke with. But with that, I did think, a lot of the things that led me to being able to have the opportunity would be a lot of the things that I would have to continue to invest in to be good at it. Some of that I was really wrong about. The passion only goes so far, and passion can sometimes end up being very detrimental in that, because sometimes you can want to see too much in people. Sometimes you want to see too much in your brand, and that, while no matter what, as the leader of the company, you are its strongest advocate, if you begin to get out over your skis, people can see through that.
Yes.
And so that can become a detriment as well, both internally and externally.
Yeah. Well, that ego can propel you forward sometimes,
Yeah.
but then when it propels you too forward in front of your skis, usually the universe brings you a humbling moment to get you righted back up.
Oh my gosh, you used the H word. One of the things that I found quickly was, and part of what I wanted to do is I wanted to be kind of a polar opposite to what the company was before. Now, for what it's worth, and for those of you that know Insider Pool, I'm not specifically talking about the guy who recruited me, but the predecessor of the company had a very different philosophy as to the way that he would integrate with his staff and with the projects and with that. It was a very hands-off, top-down sort of management style, and that is not my style. I'm very collaborative, and to kind of bring that back, I had a lot of clients that didn't have a long-term positive relationship with the staff, and it was with kind of the leadership that had evaporated in the transitions that led up to mine. And so I unexpectedly, for the first couple of years, I had humble pie for lunch with a lot of our clients that were just not happy because we weren't particularly doing client surveys. We didn't know. We just kind of like, things are fine. Da, 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 da. Well, no, not unless you check it out. Do you know?
Yes.
So, I checked it out, and I knew that, after seeing this, there's no business that's been in business for more than 15 years and you haven't ticked somebody off.
Yes.
I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, and, if you haven't been sued, you haven't lived, sort of stuff. Those are things that I probably
feel like that's a 2020 life mantra.
Yeah.
You haven't been sued, you haven't lived.
Yeah. And so, 10 years ago, I probably would have had a different impact, viewpoint on that. I'm like, well, what are you doing to keep yourself from that? Well, you can't always do that.
That's right.
And so what do you do with it? So it was my commitment to the organization that gave me this opportunity to rehabilitate it. So we were basically our own little brownfield that we needed to rehab ourselves and grow from and be able to become the company that we all wanted to be, or at least that I wanted to be, and that at least a handful of them that are still with us want to be. And now, not to jump too far to the end, and it certainly wasn't easy, but we've got pushing 50 people, and we're in offices in Ohio and Kentucky and Indianapolis now. And it's not like a magic spell.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work.
There's a lot of hard work along the way.
Yes. Well, so what were those humble pies as a leader that you had to eat between 2013 and 2015? The year isn't important, but just some of those first bites that really help you understand what leadership is really about.
Right out of the gate, I and still do. I try to hold on to a idealism. I want to see good in people. I want to see a positive outcome from anything that comes in front of me. Not everybody's like that. Not everybody that was involved with the company at the time was like that. Certainly, over the course of time, we've found folks that were just never like that. And so, coming to terms with how to interact with both clients that, there's clients out there in the environmental world and any world that say, hey man, can you help me out? I need you to fudge this number. Hey man, can you make sure that line's not there? Hey, can you not, help me not get in trouble, or, basically asking us to lie. I don't have none of that. So one of the first things I did to empower the team was they could fire any client at any given time if we were ever approached, to be able to do that, because I wanted to ingratiate the team. I needed the team.
Yes.
I'm not an environmental scientist. I've got my chops where my chops are, but I also recognize that there's a lot of folks that are engineers and geologists that I need. I need to count on them. So part of me was like, well, I'm going to give them everything I've got of me to show them that, this is a collaborative relationship. It is a trusting one. Not all of them took it that way. And so that was tough. I started to develop a lot of genuine relationships with people, and not that they aren't genuine today. They just aren't as deep. I had to kind of come to terms with, man, I'm the boss now. I'm not just a manager. I'm not just that. It's like, there's a degree of, you better not like your boss 100%.
Yes.
They're not doing it right if you like them 100%. And that's kind of stark once you finally end up there. The buck ends with you as CEO. You're the jerk when it comes down to it, and everybody else is playing against that. And that's a hard transition, harder than what I think a lot of folks would think as you go, because it does get the air gets very thin when you're alone.
When I've got folks sitting in these coaching seats like you're in the client seat right now. So
Thanks.
yeah, but a lot of them struggle with just that in the transition up the ladder. Is you can be likable, you're not always going to be liked. You can be ice cream, which everyone likes, or you can be a leader. Like, you have to choose as you move up the ladder, because making the best decision for the business, for the team, sometimes goes against a relationship that you have, sometimes goes against what you even want for yourself as the leader. But because we have to hold the business as a separate entity and do what's best for it to ensure its survival.
Yep.
We've got to make decisions that aren't popular.
Well, and that's, you personalize it. It's a circumstance. I know a lot of my peers this year, and oftentimes, it's like you're the last one to get paid.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also a tough decision. With everybody's got bills, and somehow, no matter where you are on whatever ladder you are, the bills get covered by what you make. So that stuff,
yes,
expands. So there's hard, but you do have to have. And I'd encourage anybody, you've got to have that company first, whether you've got a piece of it or whether you don't. I think it's a duty, as an employee of the company, that you've got to be able to make sure there is a company to pay you.
Yes, absolutely. And you're getting the right business results.
Right.
So there's been a lot of amazing growth between 2013 and some of the hot messes that you picked up advertently and inadvertently between then and now.
Yeah.
And the growing pains of growth don't stop once you reach almost 50 employees, unfortunately. But what else? You mentioned wanting to be liked, wanting to have close relationships with your people, believing the best in people and getting bit in the ass a little bit. I experience the same thing. I'm idealistic like you are. What are some of the other lessons over the past 7-ish years where you've realized that your assumption about leadership was not the best approach? Not that, we're all human. You had great intentions, but maybe not the best approach for the environment you were in.
I guess I'm becoming less intolerant of other people's styles. Along the way, we've been able to, acquire a couple of firms, and it's very interesting. And maybe this is the journey that I'm starting to edge toward, is, recognizing once you get something that even comes close to functional and right, you don't want to mess with it anymore. That's just, you start to, and I've seen, not particularly internally, but, with folks that we've had discussions with, they are white knuckled in their way. They are, and again, 7 to 10 years ago, I would have thought, oh my gosh, how awful that life must be for that person. Well, getting to that place where you can hold on to a system that works for you, no matter how dated the next young guy with the long hair that thinks he's the best CEO in the world shows up, thinks it might be. So being able to parse out the things that are successful for the particular environment in which you're moving into needs to be taken into consideration. That's your transition plan. And as we were talking a little while ago, we've got a lot of succession that's going to be happening in our industry and in our firm. The next 5 years is going to look very different as far as our staffing, and that's going to continue to change the way that we do work, the way that we focus on our culture. And I'm going to take everything good that I can find along the way, even if I'm not writing anything off. I want to know why I'm either repulsed by something or ingratiated by a concept, rather than just going. So I've gotten a little bit apprehensive with that. So I can see how and I'm going to fight this. Let's come back in 15 years or 20 years and see if I'm the get off my lawn guy.
You got it.
This is the way this has got to work. Trust me.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that gets back to the entrepreneurial spirit, the idealism. I'm always looking for a better way.
Yes.
Even if it's not in my own tolerance, because if it's a better way for the company, and then it's up to me to figure out how to align that with me.
This season of the Hot Mess Hotline is brought to you by my Hot Mess Quiz. One of the common lessons that my clients learn during coaching is how to really evaluate a problem, dissect it for clarity, and then take action on the tasks that really move the needle. The Hot Mess Quiz can bring you that focus too. As a leader, your work life is full of, well, work. But according to Pareto, 80% of that work isn't even impactful. If you need to create growth and change, you need to focus in on what truly matters and what will drive new results. Take the Hot Mess Quiz by clicking on the link below, which is stephaniecrevens.com/Hot Mess Quiz. Just like this podcast promised, and this is in the real world too, what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real? That's what you're going to get in this report. It's going to be tailored to your business hot mess to tell you exactly where to focus your efforts first, and then how to bring your team along to get the change that you need to create. Go to stephaniecrevens.com/Hot Mess Quiz. Don't wait another minute to start becoming the pro troublemaker you've always wanted to be. Well, for those of us that are growth oriented and love change for change's sake, the people that
don't say that to engineers.
I know,
Don't
right?
say that.
They have their gifts.
Yeah.
And they frustrate the heck out of us. But their ability to stay with something for a long time to see if it truly works or if it truly doesn't is a gift that we don't have, that we need to pay attention to. I'm speaking to myself as well as to you, Darren. But now that you've learned to be less intolerant of other people's styles, I love those words because I popped out of the womb impatient and stubborn. Right. From the get-go. And my husband will tell you, like, you are stubborn. I'm like, I am. And I try so hard not to be. And hopefully that's on my next lifestyle or life cycle journey. But what is your trigger as a leader to be like, oh, this is me needing to change and change fast. Maybe there's value here.
Oh man, that's tough. You got to be aware of that almost on a daily basis. And that is one of the things that's gotten more difficult to me in 2020, all 5 years of 2020,
yes.
Is that, what you can pick up on when you're rounding in person is that's all gone when we're basically virtual. So I thrive on, as I'm sure you do too, brainstorming out a concept with anyone in the firm about how we could do it better. And that's been much harder to do on Teams because
Teams meaning Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams.
Yes.
Doesn't everybody know now?
Yes.
That's my video of choice.
It is now a verb.
It comes with our system. The ideation that can afford a quick change towards an opportunity, towards a new way for us to consider doing the work that we are currently doing, and for a management modification is difficult. So I'm still trying to come to terms with that. And I think, as I mentioned, we've at least in 2019, whether we meant to or not, I'll act like it was a good idea. We brought on an internal social media style collaboration tool called Motivosity. And that was because we had moved from one office to multiple offices in multiple states. And it was really important for me to make sure that people had an opportunity to talk to each other and give each other kudos. And I liked their platform and still do. And, thankfully we brought that on in September of 19. So we had a good handle on it by the time everybody, we went to 30 different offices in March and April, but it still doesn't impact the way that even meeting of convenience can. So that's where, I've got to count on our department heads and VPs to being able to have those conversations and for them to bring that to me. So, as going from that, 14 person know everybody flat-ish hierarchy
Mhm.
to a multi-state firm where I may go for weeks without seeing someone, let alone, stopping by their office. I've had to let go more of that day to day. So that's also part of being able to hear that. So I've got to count on my team
Mhm.
to bring that to me. And it's challenging.
Yes, yes. Based on our conversation so far, I'm kind of picking up that you got some secret control freak tendencies.
What?
This is why I have no friends, Darren. I say things like this.
What?
Yes. So, as you've grown as a leader, what have you had to learn to let go of control?
30 people just laughed at that. and 10 just threw something at whatever they're listening to this on. And that's just in my office. Like, stay with Stephanie, get more counseling.
That's right. Coaching, not counseling.
Okay,
coaching.
sorry. Yes, of course. That's also part of it. I mean, I want it to work so badly that it's incumbent on a CEO to make sure that the vision is well placed, and it doesn't have to always be executed by that person.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I would make fun of myself a little bit more, but this year a bonus of letting go a little bit more has been that on very many of our functional sides, we've seen some good moves. So, I mean, you've heard of letting people do their jobs.
Oh, yes.
Is that
it's
something?
Has
anybody
popular
said that
thing.
before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah, I guess that is a thing.
Love people do their jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've always been able to do that, especially like on the technical side of a project. I mean, we've got great legal counsel that we call on. We've got our technical folks are just out of this world, talented. But, that's an area that I just can't get into, but everything else I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to do that less and less to be able to, give myself a little bit more sanity and to give, honestly, other people opportunity to grow.
Yes. Key part of succession planning. Mm-hmm. There's going to be no one to fill those shoes if you don't give them growth opportunities.
Yep.
So there's a million ways to manage knowing whether or not someone is doing their job. What is the way that works for you? I'm thinking about KPIs and OKRs and, those are formal ways to do it. There's entrepreneurial or the EOS system.
Yep.
What is SESCO in Darren's way?
We've got a hybrid EOS, meaning that it's not pure. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. We've got scorecards. We've got the company backbone KPI is billability.
Okay.
And so when it comes through the technical side of the organization, we have invested significantly in being able to watch that. And that has been we are very lucky as a company to not have had we've had a COVID impact. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But, compared to where a lot of folks are, we didn't lay anybody off this year. We didn't ask for pay cuts this year. We were able to.
That's great progress
to make it
in
through.
2020.
It is, and I'm just I'm hopeful, and that's also part of my commitment to the people. It's like, what, we're going to try to keep as close to normalcy as possible through this, and going virtual. We had to be able to see who was doing what. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we still decided to do after exploring for probably 2 years what direction to go, we decided to change accounting suites, and our launch for that change was middle February of 20.
Oh,
yeah,
good for you.
So in all of this, we've been learning a new accounting suite.
Yes,
and that has been less than fun, but what it is giving us is that dashboard that we've been missing on a real-time basis to see. And we're able to see it from anywhere in the system. As okay, all right, who's doing what with where, how's our pipeline going, how terrifying is that, but
or what opportunities exist in the
absolutely.
pipeline.
and I'll give some of our management crew have really done some cool finessing with the idea of it's not only utilization, but it's also how can we better manage our billability rates.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of
Meaning,
that's
are you-
prescribed in our industry.
Do you mean, so tell us more about what you mean by billability rates? Because a lot of folks in my network, a lot of these listeners are in professional services and they measure it slightly differently or have different terminology. So
Sure.
yeah, how do you all think about that?
Well, again, we've got a handful of. We have our traditional fee schedule that we like to see. Our private side engineering, surveying, the environmental remediation. We've got basically our public rate, which I'm sure everybody does. But a lot of our clients they have the heights and weights to be able to. We've got off rate.
Okay.
And the state of Indiana is a pretty big client, and they will very much have a uniform schedule, and it's up to us whether or not we want to pursue that work,
yes,
or not. And we just want to make sure that we balance that out in an effective way for us. It's not just hours worked, but are we working at the best hours that we could be billing at? Within the projects that were there on that particular month. It is. But it's horribly inefficient to figure it out. It's great for cash flow. It is a pain in the butt, and because there's, folks, a lot of them just want to do their work, and we've got great people that want to do their work, but we've got to be really smart about how we're doing our work for us to be able to maintain our edge and continue to grow and keep our lights on. And so that means that we've got to make sure that we're looking out weeks and months in advance to figure out where the work is and then at what billing rate we're able to maximize from. Yes. So that's been a really elegant process that the management team has been working on, and we're extrapolating that across the company too. And that actually is very helpful with our accounting software suite. So we're able to do the drop-down menus and check and see where things are. That is, if you can tell by my tone, it's one of the more.
I sense how it really lights you up inside.
Does it? You get that?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm glad that's coming. I'm glad that's coming through. I'm glad that's coming through.
Well, I mean, I know it's kind of a pain to talk about, but in so many professional services firms, when you have staff who are not yet up to the level that they need to be, when you have something like, a global pandemic that sends everybody home, this becomes a very real management issue. And I'm thinking about an accountant that I talked to after the third tax deadline of the year, July 16th. Yeah. And she was so frustrated with the less developed staff working from home because what should have been a 2-hour project that you could have directly managed when your desks are 4 feet apart became a 6-hour project when that person had no guidelines or framing for how to frame up that project and then deliver it. So then you have to decide as a firm, do we bill that client? Do we not bill that client? Do we just absorb that cost because we didn't manage that person? These become very expensive problems in any company that bills clients.
Sure. We've run into less problems with like a time and material issues, more of how do we make sure the invoices are getting to our accounting right? Because that was still one of the last little analog things that we used to do. Green folders making our way around. And so we'd lose some time on that, but that was also something that we could watch from our AR standpoint, AP standpoint. So, and see, those are things that you also have to be very aware of. And some would argue the only things that you have to be very aware of as CEO. I agree. I think there's more. So I get to work with professionals that are very few of them new to the industry. And so from that perspective, they may be working at strange hours, which candidly we've always made available. We've always had a strong what was dial up to VPN, and now hopefully we'll be merging completely cloud opportunity for people to work basically whenever they wanted to work, from wherever they wanted to work, as most people chose to work in the office. So that's not entirely new, but we're not really seeing that. We're not seeing leakage from that side. And we're also not seeing any sort of manipulation on any of our time and materials sorts of things. So we usually have a team around the team that's being watched, and going back to, it's primary to me to have a company that we're proud of. So we're not going to do that sort of crap either.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Yeah. So many opportunities for growth, many opportunities to change based on the global pandemic. As we wrap up our conversation and we think about our mid-level leaders listening in on this, a lot of them in professional services, a lot of them in other knowledge services fields, what do you think as a CEO, what do you think is the top 3 most important lessons for them to learn as a mid-level leader if they want to become more entrepreneurial, strategic, and focused?
Those are different things. You to do that, find it on your own. Go and make sure you're reading, make sure you have an idea of what is going on with your industry, and do it on your own if you have to. That's one thing that if I couldn't get, like even when I did my master's degree, I had very little support from my employer at the time to do it. I did it. And
because it was important to you.
Yeah, it was important to me. There were some professional credentials that I wanted to have that were, graduate-esque that, again, there was no funding for it. I found a way to do it. Advance yourself, but then, and listen and steal everybody's idea. And this is stolen too. R&D is not research and development. It's rip off and duplicate.
I love it. What? I've never heard that. Yes.
There is nothing wrong with that. An idea doesn't have to be original. It just has to have your flavor.
Yes.
And that advances. Now, let's see. So that means take the time to find a way to differentiate what you're doing next.
Of course.
From the next guy. But then poke as many holes in that damn thing as you can.
Yes.
Again, getting back to don't get over your skis. Don't say you've got the great new idea, whatever. Beat it up. Find your support group, whether it's your friends at a bar, your friends at church, or, whether if you trust your colleagues to say, hey, you know what, I've got this. Let's beat this thing up for a little while. So, and then from there, you can find something actionable, whether that's a career path, whether that's a new idea within your industry or outside your industry. But that sort of process, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of cool, different, hip words for that, the book of the month will tell you about, but that it really gets down to, and then do it, and then know you're going to have probably most of it wrong.
Yes. And
then start over. And it's okay also. And I guess there's a point where, because this is, I guess, divergent in what we're talking about. I've made the mistake of seeing too much in people, and they have made the mistake to believe me instead of them. And that has not ended well, basically, for them. So if you're in a situation where you have an opportunity and you don't have a confidence in it, and I mean, like, part of this is doing it and having that self-efficacy or entitled sort of thing that you have in a level of confidence. But at the end of the day, don't fake that. Be willing to take the step and take the consequences. The consequences can be severe. They can be professional embarrassment. They can be, loss of income. And if you're not ready to do that, don't.
Yes.
If you think you want to run a company, talk to somebody about what it's like. If you think you want to run a department and you do it well, maybe that's it. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, there's a fine line between, and only your intuition knows the difference, is what I found. There's a fine line between knowing when to accept a challenge that's going to send you off kilter, that you're not exactly ready for, that you're going to have to learn, that you're going to have to step up your game. And that's a great thing at the time in your life, in that season in your life. And then there's your intuition will tell you, like, no, this is not for you. Maybe right now, maybe not ever. We've all been presented those opportunities. And when you really listen, for me anyway, when I've been presented those opportunities and I really listen to my intuition, there's a shakiness that comes that says, this is not for you, versus a shakiness that says, this is your time to learn to step up your game.
Right. Look, you got to be ready. You get your intuition from making messes.
Yes.
And getting through them.
Yes.
So are you willing to make the mess? Or are you just, and it's like a crazy challenge or anything, but those are the wages. Know the wages of what you're willing to do.
Well, yes. I love that. Dude, we need to end on that. That is the thing. Like, that is the thing. It is, are you willing to make a mess?
Mm-hmm. We knew we'd get there.
Love it. All right. On that note, my friends, this has been an amazing conversation with Darren Reese, the CEO of SESCO, an environmental remediation group, not only here in Indy, but 2 other states they've grown, and currently 30 virtual home offices, like many of my friends listening in today. So thank you all for listening in on this conversation. Cannot wait to hear what you have learned and your insights from wherever you are watching or listening. And I'll see you soon, my friend. I am so grateful to Darren to sharing with us his experiences, his hard-earned street cred that he has developed as a CEO and president. Friends, as mid-level leaders, here's what I hope to punctuate for you that I hope that you'll take back to your workplace as soon as you get done listening to this episode. 1, passion only takes you so far. Right? I think in our current culture, it's all about find your passion, find your purpose. Passion does not carry you through the hard stuff necessarily. There's something deeper that we need to dig into in order to keep going when the going gets tough, right? Number 2, I love Darren's statement around over the years, he's become less intolerant of other people's styles. That certainly resonated with me. As my husband will tell you, I can be stubborn. I can put my blinders on and I can drive through and I can get shit done. That has its benefits. Yet when I find myself kind of being hard-headed because other people want to do the work in a different way, that's where it's not okay. And so when Darren said I've become less intolerant of other people's styles, that really rang true with me because I also want to become less intolerant of other people's styles. And certainly as a coach, I help all teams become less intolerant of other people's styles because when we allow those to shine, we allow the company and the team to do even more together. 3, shout out to our friends over at Motivosity. They have perfected the art and science of appreciation within our cultures. Darren and SESCO are big fans. I'm a big fan. We'll put the link to their website in the show notes so you can also check them out. You know, when he said you have to have the tools to know that people are doing their job, we talked about the book Traction, right? That's one way. KPIs is another way. There's multiple tools, but make sure as a leader you have the tools in place to know that people are doing their job, because that's baseline, y'all. That's baseline manager activities. That's manager 101. As a manager, you can step into leadership when you already have the technical tools in place to know when people are doing their jobs, so then you can lead them towards the vision. 4, and this theme comes up on this podcast almost every single episode, you have got to advance yourself. If you want to advance in your career, you have to be advancing yourself almost daily. So ask yourself, what books are you reading? What workshops are you attending? How are you learning to get to the next level? All right, my friend, now let's be pro troublemakers that know how to get the real work done. Let's get off the internet, and I'll see you next time.